All right. Hello, folks. Welcome to the Regional Housing Council meeting. It is March 25th, 2026. We are starting the meeting now. Let's start with introductions. Let's start with Lacey. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, let me see who's on here real quick. Obviously, I am
Okay.
Nick Dunning. I am Lacey City Council. Uh, it looks like we have Jennifer here from Lacey. Let me see if Ryan. Okay, Ryan's here, and I'm Ryan Andrews and Ryan C, other city council member. It doesn't look like Vanessa's in here. She might be joining us shortly.
All right. I guess we'll just go down from one to the other. So go ahead and Emily with county. Then you could pick the next person, so you don't have to come
Thank
back to
you.
me.
Yeah, we can popcorn it.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone, Emily Klaus, Thurston County Commissioner. We have people joining, so I'm not gonna try to
Mhm.
do the staff thing. We have so many county staff. We have wonderful county staff here. And if you're on camera and you're from the county, you can just wave. But we have people jumping in, so I'm not gonna try to play the game of finding everyone's name. I appreciate all the staff who are here with me though. And I'm gonna pass it over to Paul for Olympia. Oh wait. Do we need to do Paul for Olympia? Yeah, let's do Paul for Olympia.
Thank you for the recognition there, Emily. Paul
Absolutely.
Paul Barron, Olympia City Councilman. I'm the alternate. Robert is the full voting member, but I am passionate about these issues and am happy to be involved. And how about Todd Webster?
Do you mean Tom?
Tom Webster. Sorry, Tom.
All right, I'm with the county, so I'm going to pass it over to Megan for Tumwater.
Hello, Megan Sullivan, she, her, Tumwater City Council. I see Sharon from our planning team is here, and I don't know if anybody else from Tumwater's here. I don't see our alternate council member Kathy. And I will pass it to Griselda and Yelm.
Hello, everyone. I'm Griselda Arias. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from the city of Yelm, and I see we've got from our planning department, Gary Cooper is joining us as well. And I am not sure who to pass it to. So,
I think that's all the elected officials. I also
okay.
have, I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but and I see I'm Robert Vanderpool, I'm the chair, and I see for me in the city of Olympia, I see Kim, but there's Jacinda. Staff are gonna keep coming in, so see Kim and I see Jacinda. And yeah, that is the. Can I get an approval of the minutes for
Oh, Chair,
February? Go ahead.
can we introduce our advisory board members?
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I can bounce it to Meg. You wanna start, Meg?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Meg Martin. I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. If Trish is here, I can't see everyone.
I think Trish is in the attendees right now.
Okay, great. Trish Hefton is here, co-chair of the advisory board as well.
Anyone else in any of the advisory committees?
Yeah, hey y'all, I'm Dana Evans. I am the chair of the Homeless Services Advisory Board, and I do not see my co-chair in here today. So just me.
Okay, cool. Thank you for coming.
And Vanessa did jump in from the city of Lacey, so she's here as well.
Cool. Welcome,
Oh,
Vanessa. And I think Leonard joined from the county. See ya.
Yep. Thank you so much, Robert.
And we also have Heidi from our Lived Experience Housing Steering Committee.
Hi, Heidi.
Hello.
Welcome. Cool. All right. Do we have anyone else, vice chair?
I don't believe so. Did we miss any advisory board members? All right, I think we're golden.
Cool. All right. Well, now that we've gone through that, I will entertain the approval of the minutes from February.
Move to approve the minutes from February as published.
Second.
All right. The ayes, we have some ayes.
Aye.
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 Cool, unanimous. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
So moved.
Second.
All right, can we get some ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
thank you. All right, do we have any public comment signups, Tom?
Yes, we did have one public comment sign up. I also want to call out that you received one written comment that we sent out earlier. We also received a second written comment that came in a few hours ago from Ty Gundel of Olympia. So we will include those in the meeting packets if you don't have that. Did want to note on the written comment from the Growl, they added a note saying that the document they provided was a summary of the Growl's biweekly meeting notes, reflecting the present provider's best understanding and accounts of the monthly outreach efforts. The contents do not constitute an official record and may contain unintentional errors, omissions, and misinterpretations of information shared. So they just wanted to include that caveat with what they provided. With that, we did have one person sign up for public comment. That was Calissa. If you would like to make public comment, if you could raise your hand to confirm, and we will promote you. So you make public comment. If anyone else would like to make public comment, please use the raise hand function, and we can promote you at that point as well. Calissa, did you want to make public comment tonight? Give us a second. She's being promoted, it looks like. Yes, you're on mute, Calissa. Yes.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to speak and give public comment tonight to the Regional Housing Council. My name is Calissa Eversman. I work for the Low Income Housing Institute, and I wanted to give public comment tonight in regard to item number 5 on today's agenda for the Franz Anderson unit mix. I am the project manager for the Franz Anderson project, and I just kind of wanted to give a brief overview of the requests that we're making. The project was initially intended to be 100% PSH, 70 units at 30% AMI. When we applied for the Regional Housing Council's SOI that was submitted, that was put out back in 2023, that was a more reasonable unit mix, and Lehigh was, and we are still eager to provide permanent supportive housing in the region. It is just unfortunate that the landscape and the tax credit market has changed. And in order to secure an investor for this project, a lot of investors are very wary of permanent supportive housing projects right now because they require a lot of subsidy, operational subsidy and rental subsidy to operate in the long run. So even though we have the capital money essentially secured, we are lacking on the operational subsidy, and we were unfortunately not able to keep our vouchers from the Housing Authority of Thurston County when HUD received cuts. So we're coming to the Regional Housing Council, and we've also approached Commerce and the Commission, the State Housing Finance Commission, to amend our project scope to change half of the units from 30% AMI to 50% AMI to help alleviate some of that pinch on the operational side. If we could still build and operate this as a fully permanent supportive housing project, we absolutely would. But it's just not possible for us to do in this moment in time. Just a couple other updates. So Lehigh has spoken with the Commission and Commerce, the Department of Commerce, regarding the funding that we've secured from them. We've submitted a request for a formal amendment to the unit mix for them as well. We expect to hear back or receive an amended award letter in the next couple of weeks from Commerce. We've also spoken recently with the Housing Authority of Thurston County. They will have an update about the status of their ability to contract vouchers for permanent supportive housing projects later in, they said mid-April, but we're going to hope by early May they will have that information for us. And we'll see what kind of budget they have in the next year or two, and whether or not they're still in a budget shortfall or if they can, in fact, partner with us on FRANS. And then finally, the city of Lacey had asked Lehigh to, if we're increasing some of the units here at Franz Anderson to 50% AMI, maybe we could also do that at our Maple Court shelter that we're operating in Lacey. We did speak to the commission about that, but unfortunately, because of the right-of-way funding that was used to acquire and operate that project, all of those units must serve homeless households. So we're not able to increase units to 50% AMI at Maple Court. However, Sharon Lee, Lehigh's executive director, did speak to Vanessa Dolby at Lacey, their director of community and economic development, and she committed to changing Franz Anderson Phase 2, which was intended to be a fully workforce project, to also include some permanent supportive housing to make up for the permanent supportive housing that we are kind of trading off in this phase of the development. So that project then would also be 50% workforce and 50% permanent supportive housing as well, just because we know that it is still very much housing that is needed in the region. Lehigh still intends to provide case management services at both projects. And that's, I think, a wrap for me. Thank you so much for your time. I'm open to any questions, but I appreciate you allowing me to give you an update.
Thank you. We usually don't do questions, but Nick, no, don't do it. Okay, don't tempt it. All right, I won't attempt it. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
It's good information, but bad precedent. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. If that's it for public comments, do we have anyone else in the attendees that is interested in public commenting? No hands. I don't see any hands.
I do not see any hands, so I do not
Okay.
think we have any public comment.
All right. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the 2026 request for proposal information funding overview. Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Chair. I know we did receive written comments, Tom, you mentioned before the meeting. One of them was about the Franz Anderson project. For those who maybe didn't have a chance to read that since it came in just recently, do you think you could like paraphrase it? Did you have a chance, are you able to kind of just tell us what the gist of that public comment was? If not, that's okay. I know we just got it, and so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just thought for those who might have not had a chance to see it, it might be good to have the context.
Yeah, I would be hesitant to kind of summarize someone else's public comment.
Makes sense. Okay. I guess I'll just say to the board, I would encourage you to read that comment because it also is related to the same project we just heard comments on.
All right. Tom, I'm ready for if you're ready to present on the agenda item.
All right, thank you, Chair. All right, this evening we want to provide a little bit of background in anticipation of next month, the April RHC meeting, where this board is going to be asked to make several funding recommendations. Because there are several new members for the Regional Housing Council, we wanted to provide some context of work that had happened in late 2025 and even early into 2026 to let you know all that's happening with our funding cycle that is currently going on. So just wanted to make sure everyone was up to speed and you had the context and then had a chance to ask questions in advance of next month's RHC meeting when there will be recommendations coming from both the homeless services and the Affordable Housing Advisory Board around funding recommendations for the 2026 year. So I'm going to share my screen and to talk through a little bit of what's been happening and to give a high-level overview of what has been done in the past. So in April, we're going to be bringing to you recommendations on 4 sets of funding activities. And so I wanted to talk through those with you. The first is the Affordable Housing RFP. So this is a request for proposals for capital projects to develop, rehabilitate, preserve affordable housing. Those come through the Thurston Affordable Housing Advisory Board. An RHC was issued, an RFP was issued earlier this January. The process for that RFP is the advisory board recommended priorities and set scoring criteria in the fall of last year. The RHC approved those priorities and criteria in December, and the RFP was issued in January. Currently, the advisory board is reviewing and scoring those applications that have been received, and they're going to be bringing those recommendations to you in April. And then recommendations from this board go to the Board of County Commissioners in June. That same process is what happens with the Homeless Services RFP. So in the fall of 2025, the HASAB made priorities, set recommended priorities, in scoring criteria. That went through the RHC process, and they're currently reviewing and scoring those applications, and we'll bring those to you next month as well. 2 others that are a little bit different outside of that process. One is the Affordable Housing RFI, or Request for Information. This is for projects that we anticipate funding, capital projects that we anticipate funding in the year 2029. So this is our capital pipeline projects, so that those projects, organizations have an opportunity to go out and raise additional funding from the state, but having that initial commitment, a local commitment, preliminary commitment of dollars is really helpful for those as they're applying for state dollars. Again, they went through a recommendation process in the fall, issued their RFI. The RHC will be reviewing those recommendations in April. However, because there's no award associated with those activities, there's no immediate recommendation going to the Board of County Commissioners. Those projects will then submit an application in the year 2029 as part of the RFP process. So that the RFI applications do not go to the Board of County Commissioners for formal approval, because there's no actual award for the board to approve. The other piece that will be coming to you in April is a renewal of homeless services contracts. So last year, the RHC approved the bulk of homeless services dollars in 2-year awards. So 2-year awards were granted. However, we only provide funding 1 year at a time. So contracts were issued for 1 year. So there was no priorities or scoring criteria. There was no RFP issued in December. Grantees do submit semi-annual reports in kind of late January, early February. The HASAB reviews those reports and will be making recommendations in April to renew those applications. So that's what you're going to be seeing in April, is a request to amend those existing awards to add a 2nd year of funding for those awards. This additional documentation is really the documentation that was provided to the Regional Housing Council in December around those priority recommendations. So you see the amount of funding that is available for the affordable housing awards. So around 4.8, almost $5 million available under the affordable housing RFP. And then these are the scoring criteria and priorities. So the RHC approved priorities to develop projects outside of the city of Olympia. There's a lot of capital projects in the city of Olympia, so they're specifically looking for projects outside of the city of Olympia. Similar, the RFI, those pipeline projects, scoring criteria, also prioritizing projects outside of the city of Olympia, and for serving projects with incomes below 50% of area median income. For the Homeless Services Awards, this year the RFP is just for cold and hazardous weather projects and for the Lived Experience Housing Steering Committee. So we're only looking for applications for those 2 projects. So $350,000 is available, and then set aside funding of our $200,000 for the emergency fund, which we renew every year for those funds. And then here are the scoring criteria for those. We'll go through these in more detail in April, but wanted to give you a heads up that this is what is going to be coming. And then we have the list. These are the 2-year awards that were made in 2025. So these are the contracts, the applications, not applications, but projects that are going to be coming in for renewal next month. So we've listed the agency, their project name, a brief project description or the activity, and the amount of funding that is going to be that was awarded last year. The expectation is that for the vast majority of these projects, they will receive the same award as they received this previous year. That there'll be no change. The funding is available to maintain funding. There will be a couple projects that are able to have a slight increase in funding. One of those is in our basic needs contracts. This is based on kind of sales tax collection. We have a little bit more in that category that will be able to increase those funds. And there may be one or two where we're able to slightly increase an award based on the fund source. But for the most part, the vast majority of these will receive the same amount of funding, or the recommendation we anticipate bringing to you in April will be for the same funding level that they received in 2025. And so you can see I didn't count these, but there's probably about 50 to 55 awards here. So you can see what is going to be anticipated. So wanted to provide that over to you this evening so you anticipate what's going to be coming to you for a decision in April. We do need to have you make a decision in April because we need to bring these to the Board of County Commissioners for approval in June. So we need to prepare those contracts because these contracts, especially for the homeless services, begin July 1st. So in order to have these contracts ready and in place by July 1st, we're really going to need your approval at the April meeting when the advisory boards bring forth those recommendations. So, so that is an overview, but wanted to have this opportunity to ask questions and make sure that you're prepared and feel that you have the information you need to take action next month.
Go ahead, Nick.
I had two things. So I have to scroll way back up for this. This was a lot of info. On the home fund, so I noticed the revenue from 2025, was right about 800,000. Our estimated for this year is 736. My question is, do you have any idea what our estimated was last year? Was there and there was an over 794,000, or is there just expected decrease in revenue on that?
Yeah, that is based that is an expected decrease based on HUD, congressional, that is federal money. So that is based on the federal budget that was passed just between 25 and what we're anticipating this year.
So about an 8% drop there. And then the other one is on these projects, are we going to have enough, are we going to get the scoring rubrics for all of these with enough time to review them, to have any input on them, or are those provided to us in general?
Yeah, so in advance of the meeting, so the HASAB will go through the scoring and we will provide you with a spreadsheet that has the recommendations and kind of information on the projects. The scoring, and it's going to vary a little bit. The scoring is one factor and a primary factor in these. We have not always provided the scoring to the RHC members because the HASAB, especially the HASAB, uses those because, for example, a service program may kind of score higher than a shelter program, but after kind of discussions, they may determine that shelter program is actually kind of more important kind of from an overall community impact. And so it's more important to fund that shelter at a higher level than you perhaps would fund a service organization or a service project. So
I would like as much information as possible,
yes.
especially the scores. If we can get those, I think it's just good information for us to have.
Yeah, so we will provide you with a detailed spreadsheet with the HASAB's recommendations and the Affordable Housing Advisory Board's recommendations showing that information in the summary. We'll get to you that as early as we can. It's a lot of information for these boards to go through.
Yeah.
It's a lot of applications and discussions. So we understand it's a tight time frame process, given all the deadlines that we need.
Okay, that was it.
All right. Any other follow-up questions? Okay. All right, Tom, do you need any other information from us? It's non-voting, but do you need any other guidance from the board? Oh, go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, thanks. I was processing. One question I have is, do we have or can we make a set aside of some of the existing funds available to this body for basically like process review and improvement, like structure, function, if we need consultant support? I know there was funds set aside for strategic planning, and I value what was produced out of that. And as I have tried to learn and understand the structure and function and operation of this body, I'm also trying to understand the funds available, the limits on the funds, and how decisions are made about the structure and function, and how we tell the story of the work that this body is a part of to the public. And so, to summarize the question again, is there a way that there could be a set aside? And I appreciate the effort staff has made to make it more clear, and I'm still trying to wrap my mind around all of the funds that are available and what the elected members of this body with voting privileges have a say so over with respect to funding, because what I am seeing is recommendations coming to this body, but I don't understand yet what line items this body has control of in terms of the ability to analyze and improve and get support if we need it in terms of technical assistance. So that was a lot, but I will stop there and see what staff can share.
Yeah, so I would share that at this point, the funds that the HASAB or the advisory boards will be bringing to you is kind of all the funds that we have identified that are available. Certainly, if this body wants to look, are there other funds? So I would say we can look at, do you want to pull some out of the emergency fund? Are there certain things that you don't want to fund? Or do jurisdictions want to contribute additional funding to that effort? I think next year, for 2027, that is easier when we kind of start off with a fresh slate, where there's no kind of committed funds already. We can look at that. We can kind of have discussions about, depending on the amount of funding that is used, the county does receive some admin under the local home fund that can be used for various administrative purposes. So without overcommitting county's administrative funds, there is a little bit of flexibility there. But I think there's an opportunity for discussion for these members, for the RHC, to talk about what is that need that you're looking to fund, how much funding you're looking for. And we can kind of look for creative solutions to do that. But at this point, the funding out to the community for kind of projects, homeless services and affordable projects, is essentially fully spoken for, unless there's a change in kind of how the RHC wants to move forward. Hopefully that answers your question.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was just
go ahead.
going to kind of echo Megan's thoughts, because I do agree. I think one thing that I want to make sure is that us as the voting members really know what our part in the process is, besides what sometimes feels like just being a check in the box at the end. And obviously, if there's not something set aside, I think that should be a really big priority if we have a retreat this year, to really dive into our processes and procedures, because it's really hard to wrap my head around everything, because it's a lot of information. And I know for us to do, I know it's a lot of information for everybody. So I just want to say that they're definitely, whether there's money or not, that's something that we should definitely take some time on in this year.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges kind of for staff is, I think we did kind of the RHC and November and December, we're approving some of the priorities for the RFP. And so, that was the time when the REC was looking at funding and approving those set-asides and putting out the RFP. So it makes it at this point in the process, it's a little tricky, and I understand there's new members and want to be as responsive as we can to your wants and needs. So happy to continue the discussion and find ways to provide you the information you need and resources.
Go ahead, Megan.
Thanks. In processing what you have shared and what I've seen so far, I will offer again a request that we find a way to more clearly communicate in preferably one Excel sheet all of the money we have for preferably an apples to apples time period, whether that's January to December or some other fiscal year. And both where it comes from and where it goes to, and include everything under the sun, including the the administrative, not because I would like to scrutinize administrative, that's not what I'm saying, but you referenced, Tom, that there might be flexibility or latitude, and you didn't want to promise such with existing administrative, but I'm trying to make sense of what you have said about where funds may be available this year should this body decide we do want to get some kind of support for facilitation or process improvement, or to analyze the structure and function to see how we can strengthen it, because I do think that this body has a lot of opportunities to make a big difference and has made a big difference. And I think perhaps having a little bit of set aside time, like Nick said, and then some set aside funds for some support in some fashion. And I would love to hear what others think. And I don't want to derail this agenda today, but maybe that could be put on a next agenda to talk about if we did have funds, or if we were going to identify funds, what would be the need and what would be the how would we get to a shared definition of a problem we were trying to solve with consultant support, if that's the direction we wanted to go.
Go ahead, Leonard.
Thanks so much. Yeah, a lot of great perspectives. I think what I would suggest is that we agendize that financial overview that Councilmember Sullivan, because I do remember you asked for it, or you mentioned it last meeting as well. So I would suggest we agendize that, and then also we agendize just a broader topic about process improvement. And we can kind of walk through that. I think one will provide an opportunity for context for the other when we look at all funds, to Councilmember Sullivan's comment about just wanting to see what's available, because it's hard to chart a course. I hear what you're saying, hard to chart a course of fixing things if you don't know what's available as resources to fix them, and you don't want to overcommit something. So just saying from the county side, tracking that. I do also want to provide that Tom Webster and Jen Freiheit have been discussing process improvements and some meeting improvements for this group as well. So it is being thought about, but maybe next week, next meeting will be a great time to talk about those things and kind of have a discussion around them.
Hey, Tom, I made note of this too for executive meetings, so that when we plan the next meeting, we can include those.
Great.
Thank you.
Happy. And I know I did try to provide out some kind of spreadsheets on kind of our funding, and happy to kind of continue to meet your needs and provide you the information you're looking for. So I want to be responsive to your needs. So continue to kind of find solutions and resources that are going to work for you. So happy to continue to try to get you the information you're looking for.
All right. Sounds good. Do we have any other follow-up questions or concerns before we move on to communications update? All right. Okay, communications update.
Hi, I'm Elisa Sparkman, Communication Specialist for the RHC. And today I just we have the 2025 annual report published. So in your packet, you have the final draft. There were like 2 tiny little changes made to the final one that was published and posted online a couple days ago. Nothing substantial. So I have the final version here to share and just do a quick review. All right, you see that? Okay. So this report, it's the, I believe the 3rd annual report we've done since my position started. And I am very open to feedback around formatting and maybe like changing things up. This is just kind of the format we've done over the past few years, and so we've stuck to it. So I'm really open to ideas for how we can improve this report. It's pretty short, but there are some sections that are text heavy. So it always starts with a little introduction about the RHC. And 2025 is a year where we really focused on developing vision, mission, and values. So that's the main part here in the opening, including a photo from the retreat and revealing those that were decided upon, the vision, mission, and values. There's updates on what the advisory boards were up to over 2025. And then this section is probably what most people look at the report for, the funding section. It breaks down how many contracts there were with this funding, how many agencies we had contracts with. And then there's some graphs around the total funding, what went to affordable housing and what went to homeless services. Some things are a little hard to categorize when you're working with this kind of funding and contracts and descriptions of things. And so we worked together, the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention, to kind of come up with categories to be able to do this funding breakdown here. It's not perfect. So and then when you look at things like, let's see, critical home repair, that's something that has funding from both homeless services and affordable housing. So sometimes, if you notice that things don't quite look perfectly, feel free to shoot me a question, an email, and we can kind of, work that out together. But mostly that's kind of why you might see like, oh, how does that category match with this? Sometimes that comes up with this because it's not all perfectly, easily categorized. Sorry to ramble. And then a breakdown of affordable housing funding specifically, and the local home fund. And then we have a section on affordable housing development. And so this is kind of a breakdown that we've done in the past 2 years as well, where we list out as best we can with affordable housing development, planning, what's under construction or renovation, and then what's complete. And because funding cycles don't always match up with what the stage of what's being built, like we might be funding something this year that's in planning, or something that is complete might have been funded a few years ago, but it was completed in 2025, so it's here as complete. So the affordable housing development kind of needs to be looked at separately from the funding stuff, because it's all these ongoing projects that are multi-year projects, right? So it might not match up with the funding that was allocated during the 2025 funding cycle.
Yeah, Lisa, could you make your screen a little bigger? I'm seeing
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's a little easier for folks to see. Sorry.
Especially, yeah, this is kind of a small graphic. And then we have a section on the homeless housing plan. That was a big project that was done over last year and completed at the end of the year. So it has information on how that was developed and who worked on it, including some quotes from our lived experience housing steering committee members who worked on guiding and giving feedback on the plan, how the public engagement went. There's a section on the Rights of Way Initiative, or Encampment Resolution Program, as we call it now. And every year we put out our legislative priorities. So in 2025, December, we put out our 2026 priorities. So these are the current priorities for the session that just ended. And a section on the Black Home Initiative. And last year was the year we launched the Thurston Regional Housing Newsletter. So there's a section on that and a link to each of the issues from last year. And then the last bit is on the technical team and what the technical team worked on together and a list of the members. So that's the report. And like I said, if anybody wants to send me some feedback or ideas for next year's report, I would love to hear it.
All right. Any feedback? Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you. Thanks, Elisa. This is awesome. I'm really, really proud of this, work that you've done. And I think you have a lot to be proud of. I've seen how much you've created in my time on the board. And I just think that you've gotten so good at articulating what we've done, putting it in a format that's really appealing to the public and easy to read. And I appreciate, how you're getting feedback from a lot of different stakeholders. You're not just in an echo chamber asking the same people. You're going out and talking to our advisory boards, and you're getting feedback before bringing things forward. And I just think you're doing a really good job. And this is an awesome report, and I can't wait for it to be published. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. There's no other thoughts? Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And if you have any thoughts afterwards, feel free to email it. So here we are. Franz Anderson Mixed Unit. Jacinda.
Good evening, late afternoon, I guess. Jacinda Stutches with City of Olympia. So I am here again with the Franz Anderson Unit Mix Change. You all heard from Calissa at the beginning of the meeting, who is a project manager with Lehigh. And also this is topic, a project that you all have reviewed over the last few months. So the request today specifically is for a letter of approval. There was a draft of the letter in the packet indicating Regional Housing Council as this body, but also individual local funding jurisdictions. So that's Thurston County, City of Olympia, City of Lacey, and City of Tumwater, indicating support for the unit mix change. That letter would be sent to the Washington State Department of Commerce. That body has the funding control and the funding award to Lehigh for this project for the Housing Trust Fund funds. And then also the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. That is the body that issued the award for the low-income housing tax credits. So as Calissa explained earlier, both of those organizations, those bodies, are aware of the request. Again, that request is to, it would still be 70 units in the project, but the request from Lehigh is that 35 of those units would be available to individuals with incomes up to 50%, and the remaining 35 also available to individuals at incomes of 30%, area median income, and then the one on-site manager. So this letter would be addressed and sent to both of those other state funding bodies, indicating our local support as they are also, those state bodies are also, as Calissa explained, reviewing and considering changing their contracts as well, contract with the Department of Commerce as well. So this is really something that the state is also wanting to make sure, and this is consistent, wanting to make sure that locally we support this. The Housing Trust Fund and the Finance Commission historically try to work together, those two bodies, but they also historically make sure that they are reaching out to local funders, such as the cities and RHC, to make sure that the local funders are also in support. So that's what this letter is indicating, that indeed that there is support. I think the other important thing to keep in mind, again, we've chatted about this a few times, and I think last month had talked a little bit about timeline. And I know some of you had questions about timeline and next steps. What is really kind of pushing us a little bit along this month is that the Finance Commission, which is, again, the body that offers the low-income housing tax credits. That capital funding source accounts for approximately 53% of the funding needed to build or develop the project. The Finance Commission has reached out to Lehigh about their award, their LIHTC award that was issued in 2024, with an ask for some reassurance that the project is going to indeed move forward, that the project's going to indeed be able to comply with the Finance Commission's requirements of their funding. And one of those requirements, again, because it's a 2024 award, is that Lehigh will be able to break ground by the end of this year. So the Finance Commission at this point is really looking at kind of older funding awards that they have, checking back in, making sure that those projects are indeed moving forward, and kind of preparing themselves that if projects are not going to be able to move forward, that the Finance Commission can shift their funding to other projects. So that's what's going on this month in terms of kind of really trying to get to this draft letter and indicate to the Finance Commission our local support. I know we've talked a lot, and Calissa also talked a little bit about the vouchers, the housing choice vouchers, as well as the equity investors that put money in up front for those tax credits on the back end over a 15-year term. So if there are additional questions around the vouchers or the tax credits, or why permanent supportive housing has been a little bit difficult to get financing for, I'm available to answer those questions, but also recognize that we've chatted a bit over the last few months about that, and don't want to, kind of draw things out if everyone understands that piece of it. But again, I'm here if there are questions or if anyone needs a recap. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Jacinda. Go ahead, Nick. Oh, you're muted, Nick.
Sorry. It kind of goes back. My comment had a little bit with the public comment, which why I would have loved to ask a lot of questions. It just wasn't the appropriate time to do it. Probably would have been more appropriate to have that person, if we want to in the future, be involved in this exact discussion, have that on the report, because there were, I already talked to the city about this specific thing, but that the public comment raised a lot of questions for me. Because under this format, we're talking about saying we're all on board with this, but the public comment really said that they still have a lot of issues, and to say that we're all on board because they're all on board, it's like chicken and the egg thing. There's still a lot of questions that we need to get answered before we can say, yeah, we're fully on board with this. And the public comment really opened a lot of questions there that we can't necessarily answer. So, although I'm going to, I'm going to move forward with this, I think that's a real slippery slope when we don't have all the information we need. And then we're presenting this like it is we have all the information. We're just waiting on an answer, especially knowing that, Calissa, if I said her name right, If I didn't, I apologize. It seems like they're already trying to get those answers for us on the unit mix. So it would have been, I think, in my eyes, more appropriate to get those answers first, or at least have some better understanding when this is presented to us, where they're at, if that makes sense. So for future reference, I just think that that could have been handled a little bit different.
Jacinda, are you responding?
Yes, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Calissa and
Please
I
do.
are in pretty frequent contact. So Councilmember Dunning, I don't know if Calissa is still on and just not promoted, but potentially if you have questions, I may also be able to answer them.
My questions would have been probably before this was presented to us, so it probably would have been better to talk about this stuff before it looks like we're making a decision on it, because it's questions that I would have wanted to bring back to the city first, especially when there was some sort of answers there on the request that Lacey had made, which seemed like what we were requesting weren't going to be approved or changed. So it opened the door for a lot of questions that I don't have the authority to answer myself, that I would want to have brought back to the city first.
Chair, if you don't, if
Go,
you don't
go
mind.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. That's fine.
Sorry. Councilmember, I think also from my understanding, the city managers and have also been chatting about this. And I know some are here and some aren't. Our city manager, Olympia, Jay Burney, wasn't able to make it. But from Olympia, apologize, because it was my understanding that that had been communicated at a higher level. So I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but had thought that the communication from Lehigh regarding Maple Court had been passed on.
I don't know. I'm suspecting you're going to talk a little bit about Three Cities here.
Yeah, I just want to
Thank you.
confirm Jacinda's comment that I know Jay, Paul, and Rick and I all had a chance to talk, and we were able to make time to take this to one of our board work sessions where Commissioner Klaus provided some comment and I provided some comments. So, Councilmember Dunning, if there was not time for you to have that same level of interaction, I'll definitely follow up with Rick and talk about if there's a way that we can navigate these things a bit differently to give everyone equal access to time so that councils and commissions are informed and can duly discuss the details of what's being presented. My belief was that this item came only after there was time for everyone to debrief on it. And Tom, I don't know if you received any concerns from any of the partners that this item wasn't ready to be brought forward. Okay.
Go ahead, Nick.
It's not necessary that it wasn't ready to be a crop forward. Her public comment saying that they're already working with Department of Commerce and those things. Those are some of the stuff. Like I have talked with the city, but it was her public comment specifically that raised some questions that I would have want to get clarified. So I don't necessarily think it's anything that anybody did wrong. There was just some some of her comments were a little concerning.
Yeah, and I do know that when it comes to the interactions with Commerce, we're still kind of working that through, because who has the contract with Commerce versus who's providing the service. And in some of these situations, the cart and the horse are getting mixed up here. And I know that that's an area of topic for Rick, Jay, myself to actually go to Commerce and talk about that, among other things. So, Councilmember Dunn, knowing that that's the focus of your perspective, I think there's agreement there that we need to clarify who should be that point of engagement, so that mixed messages and signals aren't being given But I think we had some of that take place on some other projects as well. So I think we're definitely in alignment about that point.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions or comments? Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate the dialogue. I read the letter and I'm ready to move forward with it, but I did underline many of the sentences in this letter, trying to really wrap my mind around what we're saying we're supporting. And I think the letter is good. I think it talks about how the project aligns with our local comprehensive plans, the housing supply, RHC's mission. I think that all sounds good. I'm a little nervous, just based on some of the other comments we received in writing and some of the testimony I've heard from people who have lived in, whether it's Maple Court or Franz Anderson or Lotus Court. I've heard from many of the participants who are living in these various housing projects, and I have some concerns about the operations of these projects. And for example, at Maple Court, we had to implement a little bit of, I don't know what the term is. Are we calling it program monitoring? I don't want to misspeak, but does anyone know what we're calling that?
Yeah, it's a performance-based contract that we're monitoring on a monthly basis right now.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to misspeak on what the phrase was. So we're doing that performance monitoring for Maple Court, and I wonder why we're not doing it for some of these other projects sometimes. I don't know how much authority anybody has because Lehigh does own these properties. And I just want to make sure that our providers are supported in helping the people that they're serving to be successful, so that we're funding and we're supporting projects that are really actually helping people be successful and get on their feet and, move forward in their lives in a productive and successful way. And I just want to make sure as the Regional Housing Council that we're being careful about what we say is aligning with our mission. If people are being treated poorly, or if we're seeing testimony that people are being evicted in ways that are harmful to them. And we've seen some of the actual documents from court cases where people have been evicted for owing $100 in rent, and they're trying to actively pay that money back. And I just have a lot of questions. I don't want to, in a public meeting say all these things as if they're factual, because I haven't been sitting in the courtroom, but I've read court documents that people have been harmed, their belongings have been discarded, and that's people's whole lives. And it's not something I take lightly when I hear somebody run up to me on the street who I've known through my own outreach, and they're in tears because they've been evicted and they finally got into housing and didn't know that they owed rent, and now they're back on the streets with their kids and their pets, and they had no idea that that was coming. And that's just, some of that stuff it's horrifying to me to hear that people are getting help and then they're back on the street and they didn't realize that that was happening, and they're trying to do everything they can to follow the rules and do what they need to do. And so I'm just wondering, I guess I know I'm rambling a bit, but I'm just wondering what can the RHC do, if anything? I know some projects, for example, when we work with Habitat for Humanity, granted the structure is completely different. There's sometimes covenants on properties that require certain responsibilities and certain pieces of accountability. And I just don't know how much we can do here. I'm very nervous. I want to move forward because we do need this kind of housing. But if the providers who are supporting people who live there need some advice or guidance or support, I want to make sure we're providing that as well, so that residents are actually finding themselves in successful situations and we're not causing more harm.
All right. I guess I'm doing this in order. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, and I just I had some time to process my thoughts, and then also listening to Emily there was helpful as well. I think, when we talk about language, saying repeatedly, that this is a letter of support, we're all in on this. There's still a lot of questions. We're still not all in this. I think the appropriate thing would have been for a letter of request to get an answer, because that's really what we're looking for from Department of Commerce is, are you okay with this? And then that gives us, as cities and municipalities, more ability to make a correct decision. And so I get nervous when we say, hey, we're all supporting this, because that gives the impression that we're supporting the entire project when there are still questions to be answered. So I hope that makes sense.
Go ahead, Leonard.
I'll defer to Jacinda and go after her if that's okay.
That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jacinda.
Sorry, I lowered my hand. Want to address a few of the comments there. I think the first one, and I will get to the performance-based monitoring. The letter that is being requested today is specifically in support of the unit mix change. So not saying like we agree with everything Lehigh is doing, not saying that we're outlining any sort of like what monitoring would look like. That is simply the unit mix change. And commerce specifically is, I think Leonard had like used the word like horse and cart before. Commerce is kind of having these same conversations as we are. And that's why Commerce as a funder, as a state funder, is looking to local funders here to give them indication of, is this something that we are still interested in and still supportive of this project, knowing that the unit mix has changed. So the letter here is really indicating, flagging to Commerce that yes, this is something we can support, and then they will further consider, okay, like local funders support this unit mix change. That's when they then move forward with amending their contract. They typically will not amend their contract with the developer until they know for sure that locally, we agree with that. Locally, we still are committed to the project. Locally, our local funds are still in it. So I acknowledge it is a little bit of like a who goes first scenario, and Commerce is also like, you know, Thurston County go first, and we are wanting them to kind of say that they are committed. But realistically, the funding mix, the stack of funding in the project, this is something that Thurston County has fairly heavily committed to. So Commerce really wants to make sure that it's still something we're interested in before they amend their contract. On the topic of performance-based monitoring, or like what that, how could we do that, right? Want to acknowledge that the funding that we all locally, Regional Housing Council as a body, but then individual jurisdictions have in the project currently, is pulled through the interlocal agreement. And that interlocal agreement outlines that pulled funding goes to Olympia to disperse to Lehigh as they build. I think the other thing I want to remind everyone of, though, is that City of Olympia also has, right now, we are still the property owner. The sale of the property will happen when financing closes, assuming the project moves forward. So that's financing at the state and with the equity investor. And at that point is when the city would sell the property. This unit mix change, if approved, would also is also requiring us to amend our City of Olympia real estate purchase and sale agreement with Lehigh. And that is the agreement that right now it very specifically lays out, this is City of Olympia property right now. All these other local jurisdictions have funding in it. We intend to sell the property to Lehigh. And it right now is very specific about the unit mix. So it needs to be amended regardless, after the decision around the unit mix from this body comes, to update that unit mix. And I think that would be the appropriate place where the City of Olympia could insert some of that performance monitoring or address some of those concerns. In my chatting again with Jay Burney, our city manager, he has also acknowledged that other jurisdictions in this body are interested in that performance-based monitoring. He is aware, he is in support, and I think it would be that legal document would be where those things are outlined, and that would come not too far out, but at a future date. And I imagine that there will be opportunity for the individual jurisdictions to weigh in on what that might look like, or what all is required or needed or wanted to be captured in that legal document. Yes, I think that's all.
Thank you. Go ahead, Leonard.
Yeah, thanks so much. Jacinda, thanks so much for that outline. There's a few things that are taking place. The letter that, like Jacinda, I won't repeat it, initiates the mix so that then Commerce can agree, and then Lehigh can go out and get additional backing and support for the project. Otherwise, it doesn't move forward. Then there's an interlocal agreement update that's being worked through that will come before anyone who signed that interlocal agreement, their legislative body. So councils and commissions will have a chance to take a look at that interlocal agreement. And that's probably several weeks out from being completed. I know that Lacey did a great job of providing some comments on there based on some of the perspectives from their council. And now several jurisdictions are reviewing those comments, and we're going to be rounding up shortly. So I think there's a couple items to touch on that. And then to Commissioner Klaus's perspective about, us looking at performance-based, I think Maple Court and the monitoring that's taking place is proving to be very successful. And I know that Jackie, who I think is on the call, is, special kudos to her for investing the time to go out there. But I agree that that can be maybe a topic for another session where the county just reports out on its approach, why we went this route, why we think it's important. And Tom and Jackie kind of talk about the engagement and the results that it's yielding. But it is a way for us to be a better partner and to establish our expectations about what we want for our facilities up front. So I think it's great that you highlight that, Commissioner Klaus, and maybe we can agendize that for a future meeting, and that could be a best practice for projects going forward that allows us to clearly state how we want to set these sites up for success.
Hi.
Hi. I just kind of want to add in on this that it might be beneficial. I feel it's beneficial that maybe if you get some feedback from the LESC on some of this, to get more of a lived experience perspective on this, to weigh in on your considerations moving forward. I'm pretty sure that the group could come up with some things that might be missing from the conversation.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you. I really love that suggestion. I think that the lived experience steering committee would be a great partner to help us kind of understand different perspectives that we might not be hearing. And same with all of our advisory boards. We have expertise on all of our advisory boards that I would trust. I put a lot of trust into our advisory boards and have a lot of respect for the folks who serve on them. And those are voices I think we should be listening to. So if we could have more opportunities where we invite those voices in versus just having folks maybe come to the meetings and not really know when it's a good time to speak up, I would appreciate that, like having something on the agenda to where we can actually hear from people who know what's going on outside of this realm and actually on the ground.
Running a little late on time. Just want to make note of that, but go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, Jacinda, you had mentioned that there is some indication to show Commerce that we intend to be in on this, and you mentioned that there are local funds intended here. Are you implying that there will be an ask down the road to supplement the operational gap that they have with local funds?
I'm not implying that, no. No, our local funds that are in the project right now are capital funding for development, as is the State Housing Trust Fund money.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other comment? Okay, Nick.
I'll be brief, but I think
Okay.
this is a great conversation, and I appreciate hearing from everyone because I think I try really, really hard not to bring like my personal bias in this conversation. And so it's actually great hearing from everyone and where their thoughts and concerns are because what we've talked about so far is like procedural stuff. But I do think there needs to be some dedicated time to talk about the project and any project in a greater capacity. And so I would recommend scheduling some time for that, where we can just have an open dialogue and discussion versus just kind of a presentation on where we're at in a procedural context.
Thank you, Nick. I also agree. We may have a very hefty retreat in the future, hopefully in person. Anyway, any other comments or thoughts before I call a vote? All right, I will entertain a motion if folks are ready.
Motion to approve RHC issuing a letter to Washington Department of Commerce and Washington State Housing Finance Commission supporting a change of unit mix for Franz Anderson permanent sort of housing to allow for 50% units to serve clients with incomes up to 50% area median income.
Second.
All right. Can I have some ayes?
Aye.
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 All right, unanimously, we have a letter. Awesome. The next agenda item is Quinn Street Village short-term funding. It's you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Chair. And I'm going to bring Kim Conrad from Olympia into this as well. So this is also a subject that's been on the agenda for the last couple months around funding for Quinn Street. Quinn Street, again, is a tiny home village operated by the City of Olympia. For the last several years, that's also received funding, partial funding, I mean, encampment resolution program. But this past year, that funding was reduced, and in future years, that funding is expected to go away entirely, at least from that funding source. So City of Olympia has come to the Regional Housing Council asking for operational funding support. There's both a short and an intermediate, and I think a long-term ask. The immediate ask is for operational funding of $440,000 to cover a gap until June 30th of 2026. And so that is the item on the agenda tonight. The county, through the local home fund, had excess tax collections in 25 over what was projected. So there is $440,000 available in over collection from 2025 that is available to support the Quinn Street project if this body so elects to do so. That would then also go to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. So that is the ask tonight. And then I think there's future conversations about filling the funding gap for next year and opportunities to do that. But I will let Kim speak a little bit more specifically about the Quinn Street project and Olympia's funding gap.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Kim Conrad. I'm the homeless response manager for the City of Olympia, and I've been in this position for 5 years. And just to give a little context about Quinn Street Village, that it originally, the folks were there, if everyone remembers, in 2018 when homelessness kind of exploded in the downtown area, and we had the mitigation site downtown. So that was the origins of Quinn Street Village. The downtown mitigation site had about 125 tents, and so that the City of Olympia was trying to react to the explosion of homelessness in the downtown core. And then we've tried to make improvements, again, reactive, and then just knowing the impact that it had on the downtown core, we had purchased the property over at where the old Quality Inn was, right off of exit 105. And so we moved the folks over from the mitigation site to Quinn Street Village. We had already had some micro homes. We expanded the village, so there's 100 tiny homes there. We made improvements, including electricity, heat, lights that there weren't in the other ones over at the mitigation site. So, and then we provided like the shower trailer, and we had brought over the folks from the mitigation site to take that out of the downtown core. And then also, if you remember, the other population that made it up was when we had the ensign, the RV encampment by the hospital, where we had probably over 90 RVs at one time. That was really disruptive to our emergency services. So so when we opened that up, that helped us set down both of those high challenging areas. And so we have been able, Catholic Community Services runs it right now. The average of any tiny home village operating with 24/7 staff at the bare minimum is at least 1.1 million. And right now, Quint Street operates for 100 people, 1.6. It will be 1.7 projected for next year. And just it's been a huge help to our unhoused population. So, but we are at this financial cliff that we have supported it for years now. And then we were able to be supported by the originally ROW, but now ERP funds from Commerce. But they have reduced it from this year. And then we don't anticipate any funds from Commerce next year, which we're already in at least that 440 deficit for this year. Starting from January 1st to end of July. And then we anticipate another 850 after we lose the more of the ERP funding from next year. So that's a little blurb, and if you would please consider it.
Thank you, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
I'd move to recommend that Thurston County award a contract to the City of Olympia for $440,000 using local home fund revenue to support operations at Quint Street Village through June 30th, 2026.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussions before we move to a vote? No? Oh, go ahead. Oh. Griselda.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure to share a few thoughts on the record for this. I mean, the case for this funding is straightforward. It's available. It does not impact existing programs. And without it, approximately 100 people face a return to homelessness. And that's a preventable harm. And I think we have a responsibility to act. What I do want to name is that today feels kind of like the easy part. This money gets us to June. After that, we're looking at a much harder conversation about the funding for the next year and long-term sustainability beyond that. And I think this council needs to go into those future discussions with some clear eyes and an honest plan, because the bridge funding only works if there's something on the other side of that bridge. Thank you.
Really appreciate that. Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any comments. Griselda said it better than I think I could. So thank you, Griselda.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I would say, I've said in the past, I really support this. I think losing it would be devastating for the community. But I also appreciate the thought of approving this while giving the time to really evaluate the future, but because we do really need to take it seriously and figure out a way to make sure that we can provide this service for this project long term.
Thank you. I agree with what I'm hearing. Any other comments before I call vote? I'm going to give it 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right. All right. Can I get some ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Passed. All right. We are on to item 7, the Regional Housing Council work plan. Gets you, Tom?
Me again. All right, I'm going to share my screen. So we presented a draft work plan to you last month. I appreciate the feedback and comments. So we've done some work to flesh it out, put a little bit more meat on the bones. We've added a list of tasks, fleshed out the desired outcome, added a priority column. As this, we've also put it in order of time frame, with one exception that I missed. So that's my fault. So anyway, so this is an updated work plan. Looking for your approval tonight. I'm recognizing that this is a living document, that we may add things to this as we go forward. So it should look very familiar in terms of the key tasks that we reviewed last month, so I won't go over all of them now. We have our funding recommendations coming up. One thing I did want to point out is when last time we had a long-term funding contingency planning task that we really focused on, and I think this is a key task for the RHC this coming year. We did separate out the ERP contingency planning, which really I think gets to this conversation we just had around Quint Street. And so looking at what we identified is considering the immediate operations for Quint Street tonight, which we've done. And then we're going to be looking to the HASAB to help make some recommendations. Part of the recommendations coming from the HASAB next month will include that $450,000 that we just awarded this year that was overage that we're anticipating for next year as well, to get some recommendations from the HASAB that could help close some of that funding gap for Quinn Street. It will obviously not close that entire $850,000, but that could be part of the conversation. So looking at the ERP contingency planning for the intermediate term for Quinn Street and Unity Commons, and we will have some information in April about a partial solution we found for Unity Commons as well for funding. But I think really this focus on the long-term funding contingency of really looking at our entire system. What are the funds available? What are the priorities? What happens if there is a loss of funding going forward? I think this is what I'm hearing from RHC and members is this kind of long-term funding contingency planning, also in response to the letter from the mayors that we reviewed a couple months ago, is a core task for the RHC to tackle over the next several months. So we have a rough time frame of kind of starting in April and then continuing through September, maybe into the fall to get that, because that will really set up the 2027 RFP, which for homeless services will be a full RFP with all funding available. So it'll be really important for the RHC to weigh in, as well as the HASAB and the advisory boards on funding priorities for next year as we have an open slate. So those are some of the key things. The other thing I wanted to point out is we did get some feedback from the city of Tumwater, which is very much appreciated. They had a couple, proposed items around doing a production barrier assessment, looking at nonprofit developer provider engagement, as well as something that the advisory board is interested in doing. And then the other one, the regional housing outcomes report. So these were three items that we got from Tumwater. The tech team has not had a chance to kind of look at these yet. And so our hope is to bring these to the tech team to have other jurisdictions look at these, decide, what the capacity looks like to take on these possible tasks. So we called those out. We may be, as the tech team and perhaps the advisory boards look at these a little more closely, have a little more discussion, we may be looking to bring these to formally add them to the work plan in coming months, but wanted to call those out. We just haven't had time to have a regional discussion about them yet. So that is new from what was in last month's draft work plan. Happy to answer any questions. As I said, we see this as a living document, but we are looking for an approval tonight so we can kind of move forward on the items that have been identified. I'm happy to answer questions.
Go ahead, Megan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tom. Thanks to the staff for putting in Tumwater's suggestions. We really appreciate it, and we're glad to see them as proposed and look forward to further conversation to see if there's refinement or if there's regional support. And I don't know if this is a place for this, but I'll put it in here anyway and see where this goes. I'm wondering if we might want to consider some sort of not process improvement, but analysis of processes / process improvement, just a line item about continuous improvement or assessing, the functionality of our work. And that is sort of related to, do we need consultant help, and is there funding available for that?
Yeah, I made a note of that, and so we'll add that to the list for discussion.
Thank you, and I would support that because it's sometimes difficult. There's a lot of information. We will make sure everyone's on board. and it's come up several months now, and so there's a reason for that. Any other comments, concerns? It is a live document. I will say that which is important to say. No? Go ahead, Megan.
One more about the live document. Do we want to loosely say we will revisit next month because of the proposed additions, and then maybe bi-monthly or quarterly? We don't have to be rigid about it, but sometimes we say it's a live document and then we shelve it. And I'm not saying we're going to do that. And also, what does that mean to us, a live document? Do we want to look back at it quarterly and keep track of our progress and make refinements once in the rest of this calendar year, twice? I'm just curious what folks think about that, just to manage expectations and get buy-in and shared understanding.
It's a good question. Any thoughts from folks? Go ahead, Emma.
Yeah, that's a really good question and a good point, Megan. I like that. I was skimming through it again as you were talking to see if it's already maybe in there somewhere, but I don't see like we could loosely attach it to some of these, but I think having it explicitly stated that we're looking at process improvements on a continuous basis is a good idea. And potentially my thought, and I'm just throwing this out there as a suggestion, is maybe we include the work plan in all of our agenda packets so that it's always there for us to look at every time we're meeting.
I have no issue with that. If there's no other comments, I'll say my comment here. Okay. So I like that idea. I also thought of having it as a live document on I guess Outlook Online live website. I also like the idea of each agenda item having a link to the documents for folks as the staff add them in there, so that we are all aware. I mean, there's a lot of documents that go back and forth, and there's a lot of information. I get that, but I really want to make sure that everyone has all the information they can, right? And that keeps coming up, and I think that is super important. Yeah. I see Tom writing that down, so I think we've made a point.
Yep, making a note of that. Yeah, and I
Cool.
think we'll look for kind of solutions for making this available. What's the best solution for making this available on a monthly basis, and update that, whether that's part of the agenda packet or online. We'll explore kind of some options for that.
Thank you, Tom. I think I guess adjacent to that is sometimes issues come up, and yes, we put them on there as they happen. Emergencies happen in funding, big things happen, but I think this is also the opportunity for each jurisdiction to put their input in. Olympia does a lot of projects, but I've said this to all of you, that your jurisdictions matter, and we want to make sure that your needs are met if you have it, not just in good of order, right? And ensuring that they are agenda items with time is super important. So, all right. I think as there's no other comments, we will go to good of order. Or do you need an action, Tom? Yes, you do. Yeah,
I would appreciate an action.
I just looked over and it said action. I was like, oh yeah. All right, I'd love to entertain a motion.
I move we adopt the work plan as presented as a living document.
As a living document. All right, get some eyes. Cool. Yeah, wouldn't that be funny if that failed? I'm just kidding. Passed everything else and then it failed. Go ahead, Leah.
I'm so sorry, but did I hear a second?
Yes.
I did.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Comment, Chair, that would not be funny at all. I think that would be depressing.
You gotta have a sense of humor. We have to lighten ourselves, because there's so much tension, and we have to make sure we have to. Anyway. So good of order. I have one item on here that I asked to put on here, which is discussion of meeting time, because I'm duly aware that folks have busy lives, and the schedule was set prior to most of you on here. I understand that, and I don't want to speak for you. I understand that one member has to be out exactly at 6, and one of them may need it a little earlier. And so I'm leaving this as an open spot to have that conversation. It may also be a good time to talk about meeting in person occasionally, because that was a thing 2 years ago. And we had a lot of confusion because it's a big county and people are traveling all over the place. So I'm just opening it up to talk about how folks feel about early, feel about late, feel about in person or not, or hybrid, which is probably what I would prefer. Go ahead, Nick.
I would say, yeah, I think things should always stay at least hybrid, but my suggestion would be at least at a minimum where we've talked about work session type meetings where we're really hashing it out. I do feel like it is so much better to have those communications in person, whether they can even be quarterly or every other meeting or something along that lines. Obviously, we still need a hybrid option because people have lives, people are gone, and this is way too many people to expect to all make it. But that my suggestion would be to start with some sort of format that allows work session type discussions in a in-person environment. Time frame wise, I'm flexible.
Okay. Go ahead, Grisel.
Yes, thank you. I think I agree. In person, I think that's anytime that there's that option, I think would be great, and I would not mind making the trek from Yelm to anywhere that we need to meet. I think that it's just a lot richer conversation and discussion in person. I will say, I am a state employee, and so the start time of 4 o'clock is can be very challenging for me. I am doing my best to make sure that time stays blocked for this meeting once a month. But just that with it starting at 4, there may be times that I can't be here right at the 4 o'clock. I think this is the first one that I've been able to make it right at 4. So that's really where my time constraint is. But I understand that I may be the only one that has that. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, just putting my 2 cents in here. I'm super flexible with time. This is one of my priorities, and I always leave this Wednesday afternoon open for RHC so I can prepare in advance as well. So I can start earlier, I can go later. I prefer in person as well, as much as possible. Oh, and we did try hybrid for a little while when I first was on RHC, and I don't remember why we stopped doing hybrid. I don't know if it was like complicated for the tech team or if we felt like the engagement wasn't where it could be. I don't know, maybe Tom could throw in your insight there because I can't remember why we stopped, but yeah.
I'll go next. Thanks. Yeah, I do have a hard stop. I have family obligations, and I totally hear you, Griselda, and want to make some kind of a compromise. I do have flexibility during the day, and I would very much appreciate in person. I do think that there's a lot lost online. It works, and I even appreciated Nick's suggestion that like if not all the time in person, maybe it's for all work sessions, or maybe it's every other month, or some regularity and something that we can plan around, I would say. And if we are gonna move it later into the evening, I would ask if we could meet on Thursdays, but I don't know if that works for others.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'll just say we did try hybrid about 2 years ago, I think, maybe a year and a half, and had pretty good people in person the first month, and the second month not so much. And by the third month, everyone was back online because people weren't showing up in person. So that was the challenge with hybrid, is we found that with that online option, most folks, it was just easier to stay online. So we didn't get good in-person attendance during the hybrid option. Not to say it would be the same with this group, but that was our past experience.
Thank you, Tom. Go ahead, Nick.
My thought process with the work session specifically is, there's so many people, and if we do just a in-person for those work sessions, it could potentially allow us to just make sure we have like the exact appropriate people who have those discussions on those topics So we wouldn't necessarily have to have, every single person on board, but might make it easier to try to then not have to coordinate everyone's schedule. And then the only other thing that I try to be really, really aware of, because I have such an easy schedule, but the city and staff employees are already asked to do so much. So pushing in the evening when a lot of them are already showing up to multiple meetings at night, it makes me, I personally, I feel terrible about having them to, miss anything potentially, or just eat more of their hours that they deserve to have, because they're already working hard enough. So I just think that's something that we should be cognizant of. So I don't even know if maybe more of a lunchtime on Wednesdays or more earlier in the day would be potentially easier. But yeah, I think that's something that we have to really hash out.
Thank you, Nick. Rizal.
Yeah, and I want to go back to I understand this is a longer meeting, and that's probably why we started at 4, which makes perfect sense to me. And I'm not advocating or pushing for changing that time. I think earlier in the day would absolutely be a whole lot harder, as a state employee, would be very, very difficult for me to do. But I think if we kept it at 4, I mean, if there's ways that maybe like we did today, presentations are at the top of the agenda, and then voting is a little bit, it's just sometimes that like 4 to 4:30 window can be taken over by my work responsibilities, and I will always look ahead at the agenda and make sure that if I need to be present for a vote, that I can do that. But really it's just more so awareness for folks as to why I'm showing up sometimes a little bit late. But I'm committed to being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Leonard.
Yeah, this is kind of exciting because a lot of the RAC members are hitting on things that Tom and Dr. Freitheit were kicking around. It's kind of ironic, isn't it, Tom, that I think almost every one of the topics, in-person meetings came up for the effectiveness of in-depth conversation. The reality is a lot of you are new. This is very complex, and coming in to the type of meeting settings that we have just isn't doing it. Let's just be honest. And so you all need to be connected as a team, as an RHC, so that you can make the big decisions. We talked about the structure of the meeting, having information items up front with voting items a little bit later, and clearly identifying them in the agenda like we do council or commission packets. So it's very clear as to what needs to happen, and then formatting the packet so that materials are right there, a quick summary, and supporting materials. And then we've also talked about, to Councilmember Dunning's point, structuring the meetings. I honestly think our meetings can be much more tighter if we structure the agendas out for the next few meetings, and we know what we're covering, so that we're respectful of the 42. The last time I counted, there are 42 people on this call, so that they would know when they need to be present and jump in and give their perspective to what Commissioner Klaus said. We could structure their input into that process. So if it sounds like there's a lot of agreement for Tom and Dr. White to continue working that through. I think Tom's going to get some input from the tech team, but I think we should continue moving forward, and maybe next meeting have Tom present on some of the structure changes. And honestly, I think we can get these meetings down to an effective hour. Get in, have the conversations. If we prep the material, get them out in advance. I think the kind of ounce of prevention will be worth a pound of cure of us circling around and trying to figure out where things are at. Now, that may be a bit naive and optimistic, but I'm a big efficiency person and respecting people's time, knowing that you all are very, very busy, have a lot going on, and appreciate how much commitment you're making. And to hear someone saying that they're willing to drive up from Yelm, that we don't take that lightly, because traffic can be brutal around that time. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, Leonard. I'll pass it to you in a second, Megan, but I think what you're saying about efficiency and short meetings, I think has a lot to do with what Nick is saying about having work session meetings that kind of pull out the work and then have the online just be the voting, right? I think that's, go ahead, Megan.
I appreciate all of the discussion and its richness. And what I would say is something, Leonard, you said made me raise my hand, and that is sort of optimizing. And I think Nick touched on this earlier. Like there's so much in these packets that even if we could have 1 or 2 more days lead time to receive packet, to read, review, discuss with our jurisdictions, that would be amazing. I don't know what all the constraints are on the back end and staff end and timing from, various prep meetings, but that would be my wish and hope for future.
Appreciate it. Go ahead, Nick.
I just want to briefly say it is never my recommendation that we replace 80% of a committee all at the same time in the same year like we did. But what I think was such a great thing about this is the ability for these new members to sit back and clearly like evaluate what we're doing and how we're doing it in a way you can't do if you just slide into as 1 or 2 new members. Because I think in the long run, we're discussing these meetings are going a little bit longer because we are trying to hash this stuff out. So I do think that we're going to get better at those processes. And I really want to thank the rest of the members because it's clear like people are starting to participate a lot more. And I think this was this meeting was really highlighted in that our ability to start working together for a common goal, which I think will make the RHC a lot better moving forward because we've been, probably doing things the same way for a long time and not even realizing we could be doing things in a lot better, a lot more efficient. And I think it kind of took that shock to the system to get to where I think we all want to be in the future. So I just really appreciate everyone being involved.
Thank you, Nick. I guess I have a couple other things I make note of here. I don't know, Tom, if you would be interested in, or staff would be interested in creating a survey. Send that out to folks to see some of these ideas and get feedback about time, but also about where people are. First, check with tech team because this format change does affect how tech team prepares things. And then the last thing is I want to hear from if advisory board members. I haven't heard from any. I'd be very curious to hear. I know we're pushing it on the time here, but I would like to know how advisory members feel about these potential changes, what their thoughts are, because they're also doing work out there in the community.
Yeah, I'll just say I have the privilege, excuse me, in that I get to do this as part of my role. So I can make this meeting a little bit more easily than other folks, but I will just kind of second what Nick said in that I am aware of how much work the county and the city jurisdiction staff put in, and I just want to make sure that we're giving them benefit as well.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I would second that. I'm able to attend as part of my role, and so I think it works out for me, and I have flexibility, and I tend to always prefer in-person meetings whenever possible or whenever there's options, but I know that that's not always possible.
Thank you, Meg. Go ahead, Heidi.
I might have some meeting conflicts because this is the same day where I have another committee meeting with Department of Commerce, so that might be a little bit of a conflict for me.
Okay. And I appreciate you mentioning that because that's why we have to create a survey to make sure we got everyone's is able to attend. Do you have any questions for any of this, Tom? Does this all make sense? This isn't just a bunch of chaotic notes and thoughts from us.
Nope, I think this is moving in the direction we were thinking, and continue to kind of fine tune what we got,
Okay.
and move forward.
Cool. Anyway, I know we're a little over. Does anyone else have anything for the good of order before I adjourn the meeting? Okay, cool. All right, folks, we did it. We March was here and we're done and we're gonna move into April soon. So thank you all for coming out, and let's adjourn the meeting. Non-debatable motion. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.